Thank you to Simthic, accessible via sim.gg for the weapon stats used in making this video. Link in the description. Hello, this is yet another entry into the series I am calling Final Meta, an exploration into Battlefield 5's infantry weapons following its final content release. In this video, I will be covering a singular SMG, unique in its damage profile and that it's the only SMG to have access to a suppressor upgrade. I am of course talking about the M3 Grease Gun. The main use for the M3 Grease Gun in Battlefield 5 is that of being one of the most effective flanking weapons in the game once you've unlocked the suppressor upgrade. My combat role suggestion, yet again, is Field Medic. Being able to sprint faster to a downed friendly enables potentially more effective flanking, both in the form of the speed boost and, if you do get a revive, the teammate can act as an effective distraction. However, the M3 is one case where I actually say the combat medic role holds some minor viability, since if you're spotted and retreat more speedily as a result, you might be enabled to escape and acquire an even better flank. And of course, an improvement in melee range comes in handy when combined with the melee weapon I am specifically suggesting for the M3. In this case, both due to the stealthy nature of the M3 and the damage profile, the melee weapon I strongly suggest is the knife. The knife requires 3 hits for a kill at full health, and so does the M3 in close range, so the number of hits you will need to finish a target in close quarters will be wholly dependent on the number of hits you land with the M3 itself first. And the 180-degree one-hit kill assassination you gain with the knife further meshes with a stealthy flanking playstyle. And of course, the weapon's damage model also lends itself to the M1911 suppressed, as having a sidearm that is also suppressed will mean that on the rare instances that you need it, you won't be compromising your flank. And in the case of the M1911, it is a 3-hit kill in close quarters, meshing well with the M3 in a similar fashion as the knife. As for sight suggestions, the iron sights are actually fairly clear, and getting headshots may be a tad easier with the additional zoom you gain from such. However, while the recoil is largely made manageable due to its low rate of fire, the visual recoil can make staying on target a bit more tricky, which can justify the lower zoom of the Laddie sight instead. I found either to be fairly effective, but considering the range limitations of the SMGs, and the M3 in particular being about headshots rather than long-range shots, the Laddie is arguably the ideal choice. The gadget selection in this case is a no-brainer. It is made much easier to flank if you can obfuscate the vision of your opponents, so I suggest both the smoke grenade and smoke grenade launcher. However, one thing I noticed is that because the playstyle I suggest is so flank-heavy, I frequently found myself distant enough from the main team that it can be argued that the crate might actually be the better choice than the bandages in this case, as you'll be able to place it with your main force before running off on your intended flank route. This only changes if you find yourself flanking with a more coordinated squad that is in on your stealthy plans, where the bandages become my suggested healing gadget. In close range maps, the AP mine can be fairly useful as you can place them behind enemy lines, making for both a nasty surprise for your enemies and also informing you of their location if they survive without having to make direct visual confirmation, which can come in handy when you play stealthy. I however suggest skipping the frag and incendiary grenades entirely. Even in those smaller maps, the smoke grenade is still ultimately going to be more useful with the M3. As for the upgrade tree, I suggest right, left, left, resulting in quick aim, enhanced grips, polished action, and suppressor. I'll start with that last upgrade and work my way backwards. The suppressor upgrade meshes perfectly with the strengths of the M3. Its high damage per shot means you can tap fire a few times on an unaware target's head before they can really figure out what's happening. This can make up for the M3's otherwise worst in class time to kill at long ranges for SMGs, largely stemming from that very low rate of fire and slow bullet velocity. The other final upgrade, recoil buffer, is otherwise not particularly statistically interesting or useful in comparison, as the weapon's recoil is already fairly manageable. The next suggestion stems largely from the fact that you can walk and hip fire faster than you can be aimed down your sight even with a lightened stock. speed is fairly important for obtaining flanks. So, a walk and hipfire tactic is more effective in gaining more ground. That segues perfectly into my final point covering the first upgrade. The benefit of walking rather than sprinting is also, of course, that you are harder to hear, allowing you to cross enemy lines more effectively undetected. You absolutely should still sprint to obtain flanks, but the moment you are within earshot of your enemies, begin walking. This tactic makes sling and swivels less useful, since by the time you find yourself encountering enemies, you already should have stopped sprinting. And being able to swiftly aim down your sights is uniquely important for the M3 among SMGs due to its slow firing rate. This makes spray and pray a weaker tactic and headshots fairly beneficial. Because of the M3's suppressor and decent time to kill within close range, the M3 has a fairly broad range of effectiveness. In close range, you should be able to handle most face-to-face encounters if you are walking at the time and take advantage of your improved hipfire and dodge and land headshots. If you walk into an enemy facing away from you and otherwise are unaware of you, regardless of range, you can immediately aim down your sights and shoot them in the head a few times to take them down fairly quickly, or tap fire at longer ranges, leaving your target unable to identify what angle to take cover from, rendering the slower time to kill less of a serious obstacle for longer ranged combat. You generally, however, don't want to engage every time you see an enemy that is unaware of you. Instead, I suggest waiting for more enemy forces to show up first, who will have their guard down if they see their own forces around unharmed. It also prevents them from simply reacting to seeing your bullets land on someone in front of them. Always attack rear forces. Being prone for the sake of recoil reduction is not important. However, if you think it can provide you better visual cover, go for it. Just note that you won't be as capable of escaping to new hiding spots as easily if you are spotted while prone, so make sure it is a good location. That said, you shouldn't marry yourself to one spot. After you get a few kills, it's likely that eventually you will kill a target that will be downed and spot you for their squad, giving up the game fairly quickly if their squad is nearby and well coordinated. Of course, the same players you downed are going to respawn eventually, and they may decide to seek you out for revenge. After you get a few kills, if things get quiet, move to a new hiding spot. It could be as simple as picking a location in the very same area, but with a new angle. The M3 has excellent ammo reliability, stemming from its average size magazine combined with increased damage per shot, giving it an elevated number of kills per magazine. To top it off, both of its reloads are very much on the faster end of the spectrum. This would normally lend it very well to pre-fire, but since you are trying to minimize your audio-visual footprint, I would hesitate to suggest it outside of situations where you know you have been located by the enemy, or in situations where you are surrounded by your team anyway. However, once you've committed to firing your weapon, I always advise dumping your magazine aggressively at your target. Its time to kill is something I've mentioned a few times. Getting more specific, within close range, the M3's time to kill is beaten by pretty much all of the more aggressive SMGs. Being very similar to the MP28's time to kill, it's slightly better than average. But unlike the MP28, it has a lower rate of fire, making it less consistent. Making it so that if you do everything right and land all of your shots, you might still end up losing firefights with other SMGs, let alone other weapons in close range classes entirely. It should do its job of getting you to flank, but you won't want to rely on the weapon for aggressive in-your-face playstyles. I've also mentioned its terrible long-range time to kill, and I meant it. Its long-range time to kill is the slowest among all SMGs, being beaten even by the much lower damage ZK383 without its light bolt upgrade. You don't want to engage in long-range gunfights with this weapon if your target is actually aware of your location. You will almost always lose. In conclusion, the M3 Grease Gun offers one of the most unique stats and abilities in Battlefield 5, giving you the only fully automatic suppressed gun in the game, along with all the agile handling benefits of an SMG with good ammo reliability and access to the potent stealth tool that is smoke grenades. Use this weapon to surprise your enemy with a tactic not often seen employed, and if you can manage to flank them, you can get rewarded with some very, very long kill streaks. Thank you for watching my video to the end. Please like, comment, subscribe, and click the bell for notifications.